Pulling the Trigger is brought to you by Easy Vape North Shore, the industry's leading direct retailer of the highest quality personal vaporizers, e-cigs, vapes, and Canadian-made e-juice. Located at 987 Marine Drive in North Vancouver, or you can check them out online at www.easyvapecanada.com. You can also donate to my Patreon account at www.patreon.com/MarkHughesComic. Gotta do the intro really close to when it gets edited. Welcome to Pulling the Trigger, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mark Hughes, and this is my podcast, as always. And it is wonderfully edited, produced, curated, and posted by Taylor Murray. He is helping me out quite a bit with this episode because I am doing a bit of a last-minute switcheroo because this is a fairly timely episode and I want to make sure it gets out while things are still relevant. And so Taylor is helping me out and working very hard to do so. I thank him very much, and I will be plugging something for him in a second. As always, Pulling the Trigger is sponsored by our friends at Jackal Events. Jackal Events is a Vancouver-based event organization company specializing in political events and comedy shows. If you want to check out anything I'm doing, please check out my show, my baby comedy shocker. As most of you know, Western Canada's premier XXX rated dark and dirty comedy show. You can buy it. It'll be July 7th at the Rickshaw Theatre. As always, tickets can be purchased at www.comedyshocker.com. Taylor Murray has a show coming up on May 21st. It's the Grotto, 1725 Davie. He has a headliner who we love. He's been on the Comedy Shocker, Simon King. Special guest, Byron Bertram. And we have a bunch of locals going to be on there. Taylor is on it himself, and Jake Spencer is going to be emceeing. As for myself, I will be at the London Fringe Festival. For anyone interested in Ontario, May 30th, June 1st, June 3rd, June 5th, June 8th, and June 9th. That's the London, Ontario Fringe Festival. If you want to get tickets, it's londonfringe.ca/festivals. Something, bunch of other stuff. londonfringe.ca, though, if you want tickets. So, there's been some news again about Hollywood celebrities. Bill Cosby was convicted and removed from the Hollywood. He's removed from the Academy of Performing Arts, I guess. Well, another person was Roman Polanski. And, you know, ever since this Me Too movement has come about, it's highlighted a lot of the abuses that Hollywood's been involved in and perpetrated and protected and all these things. And a lot of victims have come forward, and a lot of victims from previous times have come forward. So it's things that have happened a long time ago. People are now coming forward and saying these things happened to me. And one of the people that has been brought into this, or at least referenced or has spoken up in it, she can speak more on it when we interview her, is Sam Geimer. For those of you who don't know, and you can Google this really quick, Sam Geimer is the girl that Roman Polanski raped, sexually assaulted, molested. She has been in the media a lot over the years. The media has tried to co-opt her story. One of the main problems that she faces is that a narrative is projected onto her which she rejects, and then there is backlash as a result of that. She's been called a rape apologist. She's been called usually you work your way up, but no, she's been told that she doesn't have a right to speak on behalf of society as the victim. She's been told she gets all kinds of backlash because she refuses to identify as your victim. yours being whatever the narrative is. And I can relate to that from my own perspective. Her and I talk about this, but I can speak to it a bit more personally, is that as a comedian who jokes about this stuff, and I've been joking about my sexual abuse since 5 minutes after it happened. And I say this all the time. When I was in the joint or I was on the streets, I didn't have access to a bubble bath and Enya music to cope. Right? I joked about it because that was one of the ways I was able to. And I've gotten shit so many times for being a bad representation of survivors because of this. And I think, fuck that. I'll deal with it whatever way I want. Hey, if you want to get offended, that's okay. But to call me wrong is no. Or to say I'm problematic because of it. It's just not. No. If there is rape culture, if we're going to assume that, then one of the things I believe we have to, and who knows, what the fuck do I know? I don't even like that term, but one of the things we have to admit is that you can't impose a certain way of healing or coping on me, or that's rape culture. I have to look a certain way, I have to seek therapy a certain way, I have to speak about it a certain way, or else I'm wrong, because it isn't forcing me to be a certain way, or to deal with things a certain way. The problem isn't forcing people to behave a certain way or trying to cajole them or coax them. Isn't that the problem? Isn't that what the so-called rape culture is all about? Anywho, Sam and I talk way more in-depthly about this stuff, and I think she has a lot to say. This is the first time I've ever done an interview like this, really too. And thus far, they've always been Sam Geimer in person. So I'm glad that you're helping me take it for a test drive.
Yeah, I'm actually enjoy that kind of thing, so you got the right person for that.
So how's your day been so far?
Good. I just got a little hung up with work, so I've locked up all the dogs in various places and closed windows and put fans on. And apparently, my two daughter-in-laws may be adopting a baby pig. So, we'll see how that goes.
Our mutual friend Nathaniel Christopher says you have a bunch of goats and stuff too.
I had a famous goat. We don't have goats anymore because that property was sold. But we had a goat named Jack Daniels, who then was the mascot for the NASCAR 07 Jack Daniels team way back in 2007. And I got to meet the driver, and they put my goat on the internet, and so that was super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. For weirdos like me.
and apparently, you have like 8 pets.
Where I live, we have a big property with 2 houses on it. So I have my 3 sons, 2 daughter-in-laws, granddaughter, and combined we have 7 dogs and 7 cats and 6 fish. And apparently a baby wild pig is coming home today.
Baby wild pig, oh my God. Do you have a name in your mind yet?
I don't know. I said I can't take any responsibility for it. I think my husband Dave is going to be not stoked. So I'm like, this is your pig. You're going to keep the baby big, but we have wild boars here, so they could always then go ahead and let it go somewhere else if it gets big and doesn't doesn't work out here. Yeah,
and just for my listeners, where do you live?
I live in Kilauea on Kauai, so not the Kilauea with the volcano, the north shore of Kauai, which is the farthest north. Away from the big island, the small island, so the green island, the garden island.
You're safe from the volcano, then?
Yes.
Nice.
And we're on a safe spot here too. So the rains didn't get us, and if the island blows up and we have a tidal wave, we might be stuck. But we're well above sea level, so.
Cool. Well, now's a good time to do my little intro thing here.
Great.
Welcome to Pulling the Trigger, everybody. I'm Mark Hughes. This is my podcast, as usual. And today we have a very special guest, all the way from, pronounce it again?
Kilauea.
Kilauea. Killer whale is how I'll try and remember that.
Yep.
Kilauea.
Very good.
And her name is Sam Geimer. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yep.
Geimer. And
Geimer.
Sam Geimer. And Sam Geimer is, well, you're somewhat a celebrity, aren't you? I guess, you're in the news and stuff all the time. I mean, you did used to live in Hollywood.
I think I'm more of a little more notorious of a celebrity than an actual celebrity. But I do have my odd claim to fame,
Right.
which is being the victim in the Roman Polanski sex scandal of 1977.
Oh.
So that has followed me through my entire life, although it was a long time ago.
Right, and so you're the person that he eventually got charged for sexually assaulting.
Yes.
Okay, and for my listeners, just Google it if you want to get other details about that stuff. We're not going to focus too much on that today. But one of the things that I'm interested in about you so much is through our talks and through articles I've read about you, what's happened since then is what I find most interesting. Like how, in some senses, the media and certain ideologies and certain members of certain ideologies have sort of corrupted, appropriated the narrative of your life.
Yeah, it's an odd thing because I've had to live being attached to Roman's celebrity
Right.
For most of my life. And at the beginning, everybody, hated my mother and I and thought we were horrible, gold-digging people that were just out to get Roman. And as the years have gone by, now he's some horrible monster pedophile, and I'm this poor girl who was horrendously treated. And none of those things are true, and most of it has never been true, what is said of either of us. And I think the most interesting thing is how it's changed. Not that it's never really been the truth, but that it's flipped.
Right. So at first they're victim shaming you, and
Right.
now they're not victim blaming, but like victim worshiping you is sort of.
Yeah, that's a good phrase, victim worship. I like that.
Yeah, I read it somewhere in a blog that a local Vancouver comic, John Bueller, wrote. He's a controversial guy. I'll talk about him later some other time. But yeah, he's not well liked for some of his views in Vancouver. But he said victim worship, and it may be his original term. I don't know, but it's this new cultural phenomenon or device where you get status for being a victim, and like identifying as a victim and having it as your whole person.
I think what's happened is somewhere along the line, because of TV shows that glamorize and making being a victim of anything more salacious, so they have a better story.
Right.
To where being a victim of something is now like it's an asset. It's not something you should try and recover from or something you move on from. It's supposed to be this asset or this badge of honor. And then if you try and say, I'm fine, or someone says like, I'm okay now, it's like, no, you can't be. You must remain, especially in sexual assault, you must remain damaged as if somehow if you're not, that means that what happened to you wasn't that bad.
Right.
And I'm just entirely opposed to this whole victimhood as an entertainment industry, and saw this coming years ago. And it's really damaging, I think, to many people who have been hurt to be told that you have value because of that. It happens. We all have things in life, but it's not, we get over bad experiences in life. Bad experiences happen to everyone. So to use it as some kind of asset, it's all for someone else's gain. It's never about the victim. It's about the show. It's about the publication. It's about the journalist. And they just use these victims as if they care and spit them out the other end. And, they don't really care. They're just using them for their own personal gain, which is a pretty shitty thing to do to someone who's already been victimized.
Absolutely. And, one of the interesting things is in one of your, you sent me an article, a very well-written article by Quillette, Nobody's Victim interview, which was released January 31st, 2018. I'm going to quote it. I'm not an official journalist, so I have no problem pilfering other people's work here, right? So the final line of your memoir reads, "Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength." And you have expressed your wish that Polanski be allowed to return to America so that you can both move on. Some of your critics, including the feminist writer, activist Jacqueline Friedman, have countered that rape victims do not have the right to forgive their attackers on behalf of society, and that Polanski should be jailed whether you like it or not. And then you have a response that's quoted here, but I'll let you respond to that, and maybe we'll get a fresh take on it, because it's been a few months.
Maybe what I said was better, but I mean, I think that the only person who needs to forgive somebody who has victimized them is the victim, and nobody else's forgiveness even matters.
Right.
And as for, I've been made well aware that as a victim, I have no rights in my case. I am simply a witness to my own assault. The court very clearly told me a few months ago that they cannot do what's best for the victim. So I'm just not sure how that can be true. You want to punish somebody for victimizing somebody, but then you tell the victim that they really don't matter at all. This is all about society as a whole. And I just think that's bull. I can forgive him. Nobody else has any right to forgive him. And as far as our botched legal case, which has drug on for 40 years, that has nothing to do about forgiveness. That's about a corrupt judge and misconduct in the DA's office. And I take great offense to that. So, A, my case is unique because I have a legal issue. B, to tell victims that they shouldn't forgive or that their forgiveness doesn't matter, that's just a shocking thing to say to people. If you care about victims, you would want them to recover. You would want them to forgive. If you knew someone who was assaulted, you would want to comfort them and want them to feel better. You wouldn't tell them, we don't care how you feel. You shouldn't recover because that's not fair to the rest of us. How does that make sense? Right,
and that's perfect. And then one thing that you did say in the Quillette article, and I thought this was very interesting, I wanted to bring it up, is I'm quoting you right. I'm quoting them quoting you right now. If I do not have the right to forgive for the public, then victims do not have a right to make a victim impact statement to the court and ask for punishment.
Correct. That's the hypocrisy, where is if you're angry and hurt and this person, you feel they need jailed and punished, well, then everybody loves to hear what you have to say. If you say, no, actually, I'm okay, it wasn't traumatizing beyond recovery, and I'm fine, I don't even want this guy to go to jail, then they're like, you don't matter.
Right.
If you don't want to help the DA, you don't matter. So either you matter or you don't. And you can't just matter when you're helping the DA put people in jail. You need to matter equally all the time.
Right. So let's just put this in timeline. So the offense happened in 1977. When did he actually get formally charged and prosecuted?
Well, I can give you kind of like a abbreviated timeline.
Sure, perfect.
This was March 1977. Okay. My mother called the police that night. He was charged within a few days. We struggled to reach a plea arrangement, facing a court and a district attorney's office that was more concerned with the publicity of a celebrity case, justice, for either of the people involved, and eventually reached a plea agreement with the judge. Your show isn't long enough to tell you about the level of his corruption and misconduct.
Right.
And then he reneged on deals. He backed out. He lied. Roman left the country and went back to where he lived, which I was relieved for, and I think anyone in his situation would have done. And the district attorney and my attorney and his attorney had the judge removed from the case, and that's where it got left.
Right, and then it was reopened recently, wasn't it? Or something brought it back up out of the ground it was buried in.
Over the years, he has tried to have this case resolved.
Right.
2007, more recently, his arrest in Switzerland. By the way, I was not notified of that, and the Victims' Bill of Rights says they need to notify the victim when they're going to take such actions. So, clearly the DA does not treat me fairly or follow the law in my case because I am not on their side. That really blew it up. That really just, I had reporters at my house in Kauai. That's kind of crazy. So that really blew it up. So I wrote my book trying to explain it. And just
what's the name of your book for my listeners so they can go out and buy it?
Sure. My book is The Girl, A Life in the Shadow of Roman Polanski. And I just wanted to tell the truth of what happened, since it's complicated. And I was really happy and surprised that a lot of people read it and felt connected to it, and it gave them comfort, and they shared some of the ways I feel. And I think my greatest takeaway from that was, oh my God, this kind of stuff to everybody. Like, everybody's got a story, not 50%, like 80%. So I wrote the book, and, there's publicity for that. And now with the Me Too movement, sometimes things a little unrelated, like when he wins an Oscar, or with the Me Too movement bringing out the scope of what women have been dealing with for decades, if not hundreds of years, then people have an interest in me and wonder, like, well, what do you have to say about that? And so then I say what I have to say, and generally it's not what people want to hear. Right, and you've been called a rape apologist. Yes, I get all kinds of horrible, it's really funny because victims advocates, they will turn on you the minute they figure out they can't use you for anything. So as soon as I don't cooperate, I'm a rape enabler, a rape apologist. I'm a slut for being sexually active when was 13. I'm in it for the money. I'm getting all these huge payments for whatever. And those are people who are rape activists talking to me that way. Right. And it's like, hey, excuse me, I'm the one who stood up and put a stop to this. Nobody else, I didn't enable anybody. I stood up, not Me Too, all by myself. And I don't think there is many or any people after me who had any problems with Roman. So it's just the hypocrisy of some is just unbelievable. But people tend to put their own feelings on things like this, or at least my case. And I don't know quite why, but it's like, I know exactly what happened, but people want to put their own feelings onto it. And it's like, get your creepy feelings off me. Like, that's not what happened to me. That's not how I feel about it. I don't agree with how you feel. And just like, I don't know why people take it so personally. It's strange. I can relate to that on a much smaller scale. I'm a pretty open male ex-victim or whatever, survivor, whatever you want to call it. And I joke about it in my comedy and stuff like that. And I've been called I've been called a coward for not speaking up in arguments online. I've been called a bad representation of male survivors. These kinds of things, because I don't present in the way that you're quote-unquote supposed to when you're a victim. And I'm sure that's something like you've touched on it since we've been talking. Because generally speaking, I think that the trope, if you will, or the concept that we have of a victim is someone who's so damaged they can't leave their house and like can't function. And that's never been your story in this particular case, has it? Well, no. I mean, what happened to me happens to many, many, many people. It happens all the time. It's happening right now. So I don't, I was aware at a young age, and I'm aware now, that really serious things happen to people. And that I felt lucky that nothing worse happened to me, on the assumption that most likely something will happen to you. That's the way the world, works. And I'm happy to change that. I'm happy to see Me Too saying, hey, you shouldn't act this way anymore. But to attack victims for not acting appropriately, or being damaged enough, or not hopping on somebody else's agenda, it's so hypocritical and so unfair. Because, I feel like if you know someone who's been sexually assaulted in any way, you want them to feel better. You want them to heal and recover and move on. If you know somebody who's been beaten up or robbed, that would be the normal thing of like, get better, get over it. We're sorry. Things happen. No one's been murdered here or anything crazy. But yet with sexual assault, it's like you have to prove what happened was wrong by staying damaged by it.
Right.
And I don't know how that came to be, but it's not fair, and it's almost like hilarious. It's like you'll be talking to somebody and no, I don't feel that way. I'm fine. I'm not mad at Roman. It wasn't that horrible of a thing. It's just a thing that happened. It was bad. And then when people start responding, but this, but that, and then it turns into, well, you suck. You're a horrible victim and you're hurting other people. And, that'll happen in about 5 minutes. And it's like, well, where did I come up with the responsibility for everybody else in the world or you personally? And B, don't we all have the right to react, to feel how we want, to act how we want, to go to the police, to not go to the police, to take the consequences either way? I don't think we should be telling victims what to do. If you don't report it, something might happen to somebody else. It's like, yeah, well, that's the raper's fault, not yours. So you do what's best for you, and then live with the consequences, because believe me, there are consequences for coming forward, as well as consequences for never telling anybody. But the victim should not be told how to act or what to do or what is necessary. People should heal in their own ways and in their own time, and however it works for them. I don't think we should judge people for how they react or what they decide to do about it. It's their own personal choice, and they should be left to it. You shouldn't be telling them what to do, in general, but especially in such a personal case where people have really different perceptions and reactions, to any kind of sexual activity. People feel really different about certain things. So it's an individual thing, how you recover from it, and leave victims alone. They can step up, they can not step up, but certainly stop telling them to step up so you can use them on your show, or if you're an attorney, to get your face on TV, right, and acting like they matter and then throwing them away the minute you're done with them, because that's what's going on here in America, 100%.
It sounds like in your particular case, so back when the case first happened, or the assault and the arrest and all that, it was like, it's so typical of Hollywood. Correct me if I'm wrong. At first they were like, we don't know if we want to, it's a famous Hollywood director. We don't want to ruin his career because that could fuck us up, and we have to pander to Hollywood people no matter what. Fast forward 40 years later, now they're, we gotta weed out all these creeps in Hollywood, and it doesn't matter. We're going to use you to do that. Is that sort of what it was like? The flip flop?
Yes, I see the irony, which is why I have so much empathy for Roman. Like, all the terrible things that were said about me, all the pain my family endured because of the publicity surrounding this and the corruption in our court.
Slut and a whore.
All that stuff. A liar, a slut, a gold digger. I didn't take that personally, because that's just the kind of person I am. It's like, I know what happened, so fuck you. I don't care what you think. But then now it's turned on Roman, and suddenly he's a pedophile. It's like, pedophilia is serious, and it's not about teenage girls, it's about children. So right. A, that's a disservice to a really serious thing, but B, he has a wife, he has children, he has a family, he is not some monster, and he doesn't deserve to get treated get treated horribly, and neither do I. So we've both been treated badly by the media, so I feel empathy towards him and his family. And I understand what it's like to be on the end of the ugliness, that he's getting now. So people want to blame me for that. I think that's a perfectly rational and good way to deal with it. But apparently, it rubs against the grain for so many.
Well, and which leads into another topic, because you got sucked into the Me Too controversy. Like all of a sudden the media started using you again. Like all of a sudden your case was hijacked as part of this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Well, correct. And what really happened? It's like, hey, you've experienced this in your life, as have many people. Tell us what you think. And then it's like, oh, we don't like what you think.
Right.
You can't be part of the Me Too movement. We don't want you. Like, we're just out to I think the Me Too movement is great, and it's really shined a light on the reality of the world. But to use it to attack famous people, that's not helpful. What's helpful is bringing people together, having solidarity, and like knowing this is common, and stopping it, and telling everybody, men, women, you don't have to take this. Men, stop acting that way. Or it's not all about women and men. It's about victims and shitty people, I guess. But as soon as you say a word that they don't like, then it's like, oh, we don't want you. You can't be part of this because you don't believe every single person who makes every single accusation. And it's like, well, no, because that's stupid. Like, things happen, but you have to investigate them. There are facts. You can't just run around saying everybody always tells the truth and everybody always sees the same event exactly the same way. I mean, I say believe first and look at the facts, but I don't think it's fair to force everybody without any kind of justice system or investigation. You must believe what people say. That's, and especially when people are vague about what they say, it's like, I know people don't like it, but I'm not doing that. And I'm not going back 40 years and wondering every guy who ever slapped my butt or stole a kiss or treated me rudely. Like, that's ancient history. And you shouldn't be digging all that up trying to be a victim now because you think that somehow is... I mean, it could help others if you're sharing your story. If you want to target people you're angry at, or other people want to use you to target them because they don't like them, that's not healthy. That's not helping. That's not, that's causing more harm than good. And it's for people's own selfish interests, not in the broader interests of like a better, kinder world.
Right. That's a brilliant way of putting it. One of the things that I've encountered in my Vancouver, the Vancouver comedy community had a bunch of Me Too type things, right? And one of the things that I found, okay, if we were friends and you said, hey, Mark, I got sexually assaulted when I was a kid, I'd say, I'd believe you, because why would you lie about that? But what's different, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this, is, hey, Mark, I was sexually assaulted, and this is the guy who did it, and I want you to believe me no matter what, and we have to punish him. I'd be like, whoa, hold on a sec. And especially if I didn't know you very well, mm-hmm. and you're like demanding that I believe that a certain person did something to you, and I have to socially ostracize them or worse. That's where I think it gets a bit tricky, for me anyway, because
that's where you have a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have a choice. You believe it, you don't believe it, you say you believe it and smooth it over. But when people insist that you act on something that really isn't something you can know all the facts about, right. I mean, it's what you hear and what you see is never really the real story. As is my experience. And, when Gloria Allred says, I want every victim of Romans to make sure to call me, and some other guy puts up a website, tell me about your experience with Roman and I'll give you some money. Like, that's not the way, that's not Me Too. That's just...
opportunistic, parasitic.
I was going to say, what's the word? That's just like opportunist. Like Gloria Allred, well, she wants to be on TV. She wants to find victims. The DA in Los Angeles, the new one, the old one, all of them, this is, they get elected. This is gold for them. They get spotlight, they get shine, I got a bad guy, and they lose track of, they're digging for facts to back up what they want to do. They're not like looking at what happened and deciding what's best. They're recruiting for their own benefit. And that's certainly not the way the justice system should work. And it's the way the media works, but I feel like people should know that. Like, if anybody asks me, I tell them, you be careful who you trust, because those people are getting something out of it and you're not. And they will make you feel like you're important or you're helping or that they care. But they really only care about themselves. And the minute they're done with you, they're done with you. And I have a lifetime of experience, not in such harsh terms, but, I get, we need you. And then things are quiet. Like, these people aren't my friends. I never hear from them again. Right. And then something else happens, like, oh my gosh, you're so important. You must talk to us. Right. And it's like, no, I'm not important. You have a slot to fill. That's your job.
And you're only important if you say it this way.
Right, and then if you don't say it the way we want you, like I've had those offers, like, we want you to say something different, something that's not true, and we'll pay a lot of money for it, but we don't want to hear what you actually have to say. So it's caution for people who feel like they've been victimized, and I think that putting the message out that, like, you may just be getting used for other people's benefits, and your goals of making a difference might not really be a part of this. Like, I think, I'm a cautionary tale. Don't just trust everybody, and be aware of the kind of business you're getting into, which is, a victim mill of sensational headlines. And like I say, using victims, making it sound as exciting as it can. And then they throw you away, they move on to the next person. And that, I think, is like a crime, but that's what they do here. I don't know about Canada. I have lots of friends up there, and they're all very nice. Perhaps you guys have like a better way of life.
Well, in some ways, I hear we do. Nathaniel Christopher, our good friend, is Canadian, and he introduced me to you, and I'm very, very thankful that he did that. I remember him and I were chatting. He goes, "I know someone you should talk to," and then he said Sam Geimer. And I was like, "Who's that?"
Who's that? Yeah.
and he goes, Roman Polanski, and I'm like, "What? You're Facebook friends with her?" He goes, yeah. Apparently you sent him a painting or a drawing of his cat when his cat died.
I did. I painted a picture of his beloved cat. We just became friends, and I went and put flowers on his mom's grave in Las Vegas when I was living there. And, he's just such a great guy. And so we do Christmas cards and stuff. So like, we're now like really, really friends. So it's kind of nice when people just don't know who I am. I appreciate that. And I appreciate being in Hawaii, because living in Los Angeles, it was good to move away from there, because, I'm older, I'm 55. So if I was only 13, if you're younger than me and you're not interested in Hollywood, you're like, what? Roman who? But so that's nice. But if you're in Los Angeles, the people there are more like, ooh, let me hear about that. Like, to them, it's more, I don't know, more exciting to know somebody who has like a celebrity thing. So I'm not big on that. As I found out, celebrities are not always super cool and awesome. Sometimes they're jerks.
Yeah, sometimes they're rapists, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So, you gotta you can't just oh, you're famous. It's like, that guy could be a total a-hole.
Well, the celebrity can actually allow them, as well as Me Too highlighted, to get away with a lot of shit. A lot of
Obviously.
Stuff, right?
Oh my gosh. I thought things were better. I thought things were not the same as they were in the 70s and 80s. And apparently they're worse. So I am really happy to see that put to a stop. I was shocked that kind of thing still went on. I mean, we all know about the casting couch. My mom was an actress. Guys were always trying to get in your pants. I was brought up in a time where it was like, guys are gross pigs. Some of them are dangerous. Be careful. By the time you were 12, you saw that. By the time you were 14, you were fair game for the creeps. I mean, me and my sister got asked one time in Venice, like, hey, do you want to make some money? I was 12. She was probably 18. So that was life, right? I mean, it was like no big deal. We walked away. But that's the world I grew up in, where Brooke Shields was posing nude at 11, and Pretty Baby was a hit movie, and Taxi was a hit movie, and Manhattan was a hit movie. That was my reality. That wasn't the good old days. That's, for good or bad. There's a lot more sexual freedom and a lot more bad behavior, and that's the way it was. I think what I don't understand is why everyone wants to go back and punish people that did things decades ago. Like, we need to make change now. We need to raise awareness now. We need to help people who are being hurt now. And being angry at Roman Polanski for things that happened in the 70s, or wanting to punish him for them as if he hasn't already, pled guilty and went to jail, or they just decided now they want to talk about it, which is totally their right. But that doesn't help anybody now. So what's the benefit in that? Do you get attention? Do you feel better because somebody's been hurt? I mean, I never felt like, I mean, maybe nothing horrible enough has ever happened in my life to where something's just been unforgivable. But, I'm not that kind of person. So it's hard for me to see how, like, for instance, Dylan Farrow, she wants to see Woody, her father, punished. She wants to see him hurt. She feels resentment that he has fame. For me, that's just not who I am, and it seems like really sad and really unhealthy. And bad things happen to all of us. You need to move forward, and whether Roman goes to jail for a day or a year or forever, I'm not going to get unraped. Like, what's the point? I mean, maybe protect society from dangerous people, but like, I never understood the logic in, well, I'm not really big on the penal system and incarceration because, as you know, we have a problem with too many people in jail here in America. But, I just, throwing people in jail for stuff is not always a great way to make the world a better place.
It's almost always the worst way because people have this tendency of coming out worse than when they came in. And
true. And if you're not really protecting people, if you're not protecting society and you're not rehabilitating people that have had some kind of like drug problem or mental health issue, or maybe they're just a crazy murderer and they belong in jail. But there's levels, there's levels of crime, there's levels of sexual misconduct, and you have to like look at those gray areas and pick out the true details. You can't just lump people in or think somehow if somebody else pays some sort of price, then you will be healed from that. Like, you need to heal from within. You need to come to terms with what happens to you, no matter what outside influences or circumstances happen. Like, it's not healthy I can't get better if this person's not punished, or I can't get better if you don't believe me. You need to get better from the inside out, not from the outside in. So I don't understand why people put these exterior uncontrollable conditions and box in their recovery with that, with that fact of their life. So I say, recover however you want to, and don't rely on anyone else but yourself, because maybe you don't have anybody else.
And that's the case for a lot of people. One of the things I can definitely say that's come out of this Me Too movement is I know people who work in film. I don't know if you know this or not, Vancouver is a pretty vibrant film. Like, Hollywood uses us a lot for filming.
I do know that.
So I know a lot of people who work in film, and now if you even make an off-color sexual joke, you're fired. Like, if a third party can overhear you, if you and I are joking around and I say something like, suck my dick, Sam, and so a third party heard me say that, and they went to HR or whatever it's called, I'd be fired without even asking you. And it might seem extreme, but, okay, so on the one hand, I would say that is extreme, but it does show that, okay, Hollywood responded, right?
I don't, but the thing about Hollywood is I don't know if they're really responding.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the Academy can say, well, because of, we were voting on Bill Cosby, who just got convicted and apparently was a serial attacker or super creep. So we'll just tack Roman onto that and we'll kick him out too.
Right.
Like, what does that do? Are things really different there? If I go on an audition today, well, okay, let's say if I was 20 and I went on audition today, would I still get sexually harassed? Would my agent still tell me to suck it up? So I don't know that they're really making a difference.
Right.
And I don't like this new reality of controlling your language and assuming everybody has to fit to some kind of rigid standards. When people's sexuality and people's senses of humor, vary widely. I mean, of course, there's certain office behavior that you can say, you're in an office, don't do that. But you can do that at the bar. It's you got to kind of let people live their lives. And if a guy says something, or let's not do this guy girl thing, but if somebody is inappropriate to you at work, you say, stop it.
Right.
You can't talk to me that way. And if you can't do that, or unwilling to do that, or there would be the case of, I'm unwilling, I don't want to, I just want to get this guy fired, or then this guy's my boss and I can't do anything. So you have to feel out these situations individually. And people, I think what we need to happen is let's go back to like the man-woman dynamic. Like, guys need to realize not all women are the same. And that some women, if you touch their waist, they feel like you've invaded their space and have been assaulted.
Right.
Some women, you can go, oh, suck my dick. My sister used to say that all the time. Or smack her on the ass, and she'll laugh and won't blink her eye, because that's a different woman. So I think what men need to know is that, women are individuals, and you should be cautious, because some people are more sensitive to others about certain things, and you could avoid hurting someone's feelings or upsetting someone or getting in trouble that way. But to take all the, how are you supposed to get somebody to go out with you? My husband basically sexually harassed me for 3 months, and now we've been married for 30 years. But the stuff he would say to me, he's a great guy. But the stuff he would say to me and the things he would do, now people would be like, oh my God, he's like a molester. And it's like, no, back again, this was the 80s, but I wouldn't feel any less threatened by him or someone like that today. So you have to account for people's individuality, and you have to account for your own behavior and where you are and who you're talking to. I don't think there's hard and fast rules. Basically, don't show people your dick.
Okay.
I don't know when that started happening.
Right.
I talked with this about Dave, and we're like, so this is what happens now. Guys just are whipping it out and jerking it off, and this is something that's been going on for years. We were both like, whoa, shit, he's like, that's a tender area. I wouldn't be just whipping that out. Somebody might smack it,
Yeah.
So, obviously, don't do that. You're weird,
Yeah.
But it's hard to make hard, fast rules. And, people are going to get treated unfairly on both ends of that. So, maybe if everyone just had better manners and were more aware of the people they're interacting with, then we could just make things a little easier, and we wouldn't have so much trouble with people being in uncomfortable situations.
Which is a perfect segue into another area. You were asked to, or you did. You were either asked to and or did to respond to this thing with Aziz Ansari. I think you've had some.
I might have volunteered that. I might have just volunteered that.
Okay. Yeah.
That was the shittiest thing ever. It's this reporter who wants to make a name for herself because she's a journalist and that's her job to find stories, gets this woman who had this bad, creepy date that she didn't like with Aziz Ansari, and she gets to be anonymous and basically call him a gross lover and all this stuff. That's just mean. That is just mean, nasty behavior. First of all, the journalist, I think that is bad journalism, and that is someone trying to get attention for themselves, not try and tell a story. Second, no matter how upset the woman was, you might talk to your friends or you might talk to him, but you don't write a story about it. It's just, rude does not seem like a strong enough word, but how can he defend himself against this anonymous person? And then there's just the question of ladies, do not go into apartments or hotel rooms with men just because they ask you to. If you're out drinking, and in this case, she was upset, she mentioned, I didn't even get he chose the wine. So you couldn't even speak up to what kind of wine you wanted. if that's the kind of person you are, what are you doing naked in his apartment? Just like women should be allowed to take care of themselves. And it's not wrong. You're not being a victim blamer to say, be cautious. Don't take meetings in hotel rooms. Learn to walk out a damn door and not, like, be aware of your surroundings. That's like, you need those skills as a woman, because maybe everybody's wonderful, but there's one really dangerous guy around, and there might be. So you need to be cautious because you can get hurt. So I don't think first of all, I thought that was just a really shitty thing to do to him. Just humiliate him for no good reason, except for the benefit of the journalist. But second of all, I'm tired of being told I'm a victim blamer for telling, especially younger women, like, be cautious, take care of yourself, be aware of your surroundings, travel with friends. Like, you never left a girl in a bar, never. I have been pulled out of bars from my friends going, we are leaving, and you're coming with us, because you look after each other. And even if all men aren't bad, which of course they're not, the more important fact is it only takes one really dangerous person. And there's always going to be a possibility that there is a dangerous person. So look out for yourself. And, oh no, you're a victim blamer. It's like, no, I'm not. I want to empower women with the knowledge to stay safe and say, be able to say no and be able to make decisions and say, I don't like red wine, I want white wine, or if some guys like come to my apartment, like, no, I know you can't come in my apartment.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry. So apparently that's bad, because we should all just be able to, like, go into hotel rooms alone with people. And of course it's true. If they do something wrong, it's on them. They did it. It's their fault. They're the bad person. But if you never go in, then you've saved yourself a bad experience. So I would do that.
Well, I was a street kid, and I got molested and raped a few times, right? And one of the things I realized is, as I got older and after they happened a few times, is there's guys out here who are going to fucking keep on doing this shit, right? Mm-hmm. So I better learn, and it wasn't like a conscious decision per se, it just sort of eventually came to me that, like, okay, if I go to this guy's fucking place, I better either have a weapon, or I better see how to get out of here, or I better actually clear up what we're doing in there, right. Or, like, I better just not go to his place, or whatever. Like, because I knew after the third or fourth attempted or actual assault that this is never going to stop. This will keep happening. Again, it didn't happen every time I went into some stranger's house, but it happened often enough, and I had to realize, like, so with the benefit of hindsight as an adult, I can say as a kid, I had to learn there were certain things that, yes, it wasn't my fault that they were victimizing me, but there were certain circumstances that, hey, once I changed a couple behaviors, the sexual assaults went down. The attempted sexual assaults went, like, the frequency of them went away, right? And that's not victim blaming. That's just common sense and practical, you know what I mean?
And it's not fair. It's not fair that people get victimized. It's not fair that there's bad people out there who will hurt you. But I think that that's not a solvable problem. That will never, ever. Society,
and it's never going to go away.
Yeah. And maybe we can make society better. Maybe we can have less fucked up people. Yeah. But in honesty, all this, in America, all this prudish behavior, I think, only makes it worse. I mean, I was not raised in this in your generation, but, telling girls that sex is bad and sex will hurt them, and boys take it from you and you give it to them, and you have a value in your vagina because, like, once you're not a virgin, you're less valuable. And when you have sex with somebody, they're somehow taking something from you or damaging you or using you. That is super unhealthy. And, or teaching boys that you should get as much sex as you can, anywhere you can, anytime that you can. It's a demonstration of your masculinity. Like, that's very unhealthy. That's what makes people be weird sexual predators sometimes, I think, is having these these beliefs in their head about sexuality that are so unhealthy. I mean, sex is natural, like George Michael, it's natural, it's good. Not everybody does it, but everybody should. But you have to educate people that it's like a healthy part of life. It's a strong biological drive that is necessary for our species. It's not an ugly, tawdry, hurtful thing. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing that everyone enjoys, and usually everybody does. And you need to pick and choose who you share your intimacy with and who you want to be that close to. But when you raise a generation of girls and boys telling them that we can't talk about sex, you can't know how to protect yourself, we won't educate you about sex because, sex is bad, so go watch some porn. I mean, you don't want to raise a generation of sexually dysfunctional people. That is not going to help anybody from getting molested or victimized. That's just going to cause more, more weird ideas and more bad behavior. I mean, I think that's just my opinion, but I think sexual positivity is getting thrown under the bus a little bit these days, and it's important to be honest and open about our bodies and what we all do, and everybody gets with my case, I think. For me personally, it's the sodomy that everybody loves saying that and talking about it. And it's not everybody freaks out about that.
Right.
And, I can hear the excitements in people's voice when they get to say it out loud. That's weird. That, it's that's just, anal sex is a thing. Some people do it. Some people don't. Leave it at that, because what you do is your own business. But it's wasn't it awful? And it's if it was awful, I would have said so. It's just something that happened, and leave it. I apparently don't have the stigmas and judgments. Maybe someone else does, but could you just leave me in peace, with my own general satisfaction with I'm okay, and not, back to stop putting your weird stuff on me.
What's life like? What's life like outside of all this? What is Sam Geimer as a person totally removed from all this bullshit? What your grandmother? I heard.
Yes, yeah. I've been married twice, and I have 3 sons and a granddaughter, which is great. My oldest son's getting married. My youngest son had the granddaughter, who is beautiful and amazing. I got to tell you, we were having a little rough patch. Sometimes things are just hard. My husband was hurt a few years back, so he's not working, and money stuff. And boy, that little girl just lights up the whole world. It's but the baby's cute, and somehow troubles melt away. And we're looking forward to the wedding. My son's father's coming. My first husband. We're all great friends. Hawaii's awesome. I live in a small town, and we don't even have sidewalks. It's nice to be away from this stuff. But when it comes up, it's kind of fun. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy going on Larry King. I felt like a movie star. So I make the best of it. And when I have to deal with it, it's like work. I put on my game face. I deal with it. Try to make the world a better place if I can. And the rest of the time, it's, I work in accounting. That's not very much fun.
Pays the bills, though.
Yeah. But, we have pets, we have family, we have one of those houses where a lot of people come and go and stay over. And I love it in Vegas. I love it in Nevada. We've lived there also. But life is good. We have a kind of we're a great life. We're kind of like trailer trash a little bit, I mean, honestly, I would, on the level of people, we're kind of rednecks, it's just NASCAR and beer drinking and inappropriate language and constant family squabbles, and the roof is leaking. Yeah, 7 cats and dogs, and the roof's leaking, and no one's picking up the poop outside. So very regular, to me, a very regular life, and it'd be nice to get this whole Roman thing resolved, but I don't think that's likely to happen. So we'll just live with the way it is now. I mean, that's all we can do. And my sons are grown up. They don't like it. I don't think any of them read my book. But that's okay. They're boys. It's fine. So I'm just trying to use this little platform I have to maybe say some things that are helpful. Because people suffer, and it's not just people. It's all the famous people aside. people are hurting and people suffer and people get assaulted and victimized, and it's really most people deal with it quietly and get no support or little support. So if in all of this, I can make some kind of difference to someone else to say, like, it's okay to not be fine. It's okay to be fine. Try and get to where you're fine. Just anything I can say. I feel like I should help. Like, I feel like that's my biggest thing in life right now is I wish I could do more to help somehow with any of this, but I don't really have like the channels to do it way out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on our tiny little island.
Well, one of the reasons I do this podcast is to talk to interesting, unusual, and controversial people, and I think you might check off each one of those categories to a certain degree.
Like
and
that.
It's when I started this podcast, it's because I have a Rolodex of people who aren't exactly what you'd call normal, right? Like, my first episode was an escort. My second episode was a convicted murderer. My third episode was a prison guard. Fourth episode was a fentanyl dealer, right? And so these are people who the average person might not ever get to hear talk at length other than a quote in a newspaper article or something like that, right? So someone like you, who, yeah, there's a lot of celebrity attached to you and you're notorious, but this your story and your point of view is not one that is very common or popular for a variety of reasons which we've discussed today, and that's why I want people to hear it, because I come from a very odd and colorful background, and people are always asking me about prison, and here's one I get asked all the time. Were you raped when you were in prison? Like, before they even know anything about me, not even my last name, I just tell them I was in prison. They go, "Were you raped?"
I would never think to ask that of anybody.
Who gives I know, but it's this thing.
Like a separate conversation.
What? And hey, will you buy me dinner first? Jesus Christ! Right?
Exactly. If we're gonna go there,
and
like,
if you
kiss
want
me first, buddy.
If you want graphic details, you better buy me a couple drinks too. So, and these are things that, like. So the people knee-jerking that question is a mirror image of what you're talking about, right? So in your case, they want you to present a certain way. In my case, I have to have been raped, right? And I do this podcast because I want to get us people who maybe aren't the norm, for lack of a better term, I'd like us to be a bit more normal.
I feel like we are normal. I do. Like, everybody I know has had interesting and long, weird lives, and all this stuff happens, and you do crappy stuff, and you do good stuff, and bad things happen to you, and
good things happen to you,
and good things happen to you. Let's not leave that out. And I feel like I'm like, let's just go like subnormal.
Right.
Like, all these other people must have these perfect, organized lives, but I've got this like weird kind of messed up life. But I think most people have kind of weird, messed up lives. So why are we all faking it? And why are all these people with these high morals, apparently, they've never made mistakes, until of course you find out that they have, and they're hypocrites. Like, why are they speaking for us? Why are they judging us? Why can't we just be kind to everyone and let people live the lives they're living, and rather than being judgmental, be supportive? Like, where did we lose just consideration and manners and respect for people with different kinds of views? I was raised that you supported people's rights to disagree with you. That was part of being in America. Like, American people didn't agree with you. You fought for their right to be able to not agree with you, because what's important is we all get to speak our own truth and converse and believe what we choose to believe. And some of that's just been lost. And so I feel like we need a bigger voice. All of us. I know all kinds of people with all kinds of stories, and I think we're the majority, or we're at least like an equal amount of people who don't have a life that's, a pretty little straight line with perfectly spaced dots of regular occurrences. So I'm always willing to talk and happy to talk and kind of try and be positive and either give good advice from all my experiences or just encourage people, to feel better about themselves. And for some reason, I get a lot of pushback on that. So I say, screw those people, and I'll say what I want.
Well, this has been a great interview, and I think it's a good time to maybe shut her down. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all my guests. For the average person on the street, the average woman, the average man, any closing thoughts, anything you'd like them to think about, anything you'd like to say?
I would like to tell, your listeners, don't be so quick to judge. If you're not personally involved in something, you probably don't really know the facts. And allow other people to be who they are. And we all have differences. We should support each other and love each other. We shouldn't judge each other and hate each other and try and change each other. Like, let's just be better people. You'll feel better if you think about yourself and not try and change everyone around you to fit the way you think they should live their life.
Wise
Was that
words.
sappy?
No, that's great. That's great. Wise words from a wise woman.
Thank you.
Sam Geimer, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for doing this podcast with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was fun.
It was great. And what are you going to do for the rest of the day? Do you got animals you're going to pet and feed and stuff?
Yes, I have dog gates to open and animals to pet and bookkeeping to do. So and maybe play with my granddaughter. So
nice.
It's all good down here. Thank you.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us once again. This has been Pulling the Trigger. Pulling the Trigger is sponsored by our friends at Jackal Events. Jackal Events is a Vancouver-based event organization company specializing in political events. Please find Pulling the Trigger on Soundcloud and iTunes and hit subscribe. If you'd like to follow me and my antics, whether it's comedy, storytelling, fringe shows, some motivational speaking, you can follow me at Mark Hughes Comic on both Instagram and Facebook, and Twitter. And if you like what I'm doing, I don't mind taking donations, and you can do so at www.patreon.com/Mark Hughes Comic. Don't forget that Comedy Shocker is a quarterly dark and dirty comedy show. Please like that page, Comedy Shocker, on both Instagram and Facebook, and keep staying tuned or tuned in, or however you want to put it, to Pulling the Trigger, where I will be continually interviewing interesting, unusual, and controversial people. Peace out, homies.